In this video, I want to address a few things. But before I do, I'm doing this video in English because many of you have commented and have asked that I do this video in English. So I'm doing it in English for those of you who wanted me to do it in English. But there are three things that I want to talk to you today about. The first thing is I want to address some of the comments and people who've said that I'm doing a disservice to Eddy Alexandre. That's the first issue I want to address. The second issue I want to address is the status of the case, US versus Eddy Alexandre. The third thing that I will address is something that wasn't present when Eddy Alexandre was arrested. And now there's a forfeiture actions in the new indictment, which I want to address, and I will explain why I think this could smell a lot of trouble, not just for Eddy Alexandre, but for also his family. First of all, for those of you, okay, who said that I'm doing a disservice to Eddy Alexandre, I am not. This is a very, very important case to the Haitian community. Mr. Alexandre is accused of collecting over $100 million from over 62,000 people. So this is a case of public importance, at least to the Haitian community. Certainly, if the media is not constantly reporting in this case, somebody has to do it. And I think the community has a right to know what's going on in the case because there are so many people involved and so much money involved. Now, I've never said, and I would never say, that Eddy Alexandre is guilty. The government made an accusation against him, and the government will have opportunity to prove its case. And Eddy Alexandre will have also an opportunity to defend himself. My job, what I'm doing, cannot be seen as something against Eddy Alexandre. Eddy Alexandre is no more important than the rest of the community. Certainly, Eddy Alexandre has his supporters, and I commend him for that. The people from his church support him. There are a lot of people who support him, who believe that Eddy Alexandre was doing something good for the community. Well, the US government is saying that he was not. So we have two sides. One side is the government saying that Eddy Alexandre is a fraudster. And the other side are Eddy Alexandre and his people are saying, no, I'm not. So I don't know who's telling the truth. I don't know whether the US government is telling the truth. I don't know whether Eddy Alexandre is telling the truth. But some way, somehow, we will find out. And I will continue to report on this case until the case is over, one way or the other. Now, there are two ways that this case is going to be over. One is either Eddy Alexandre takes a plea, which is very unlikely based on what's going on right now. Two, the case will go to trial. Eddy Alexandre will elect his constitutional right to a jury trial. The case will go to trial, and the jury will decide who's telling the truth, whether or not the government is right, Eddy Alexandre is indeed a crook, or that the government was wrong, that they picked on him because he's Haitian and he's helping the community. My job is not to play jury. I'm not the jury. All I'm doing is updating people about what's going on in the case. So don't attack me because I didn't start the case. I didn't arrest Eddy Alexandre. I have nothing to do with the situation. If this was a very small case, I would not have wasted my time to report on it. But this is not a small case. This is a very big case. And that's the reason I will continue to report on it. So just get used to it because you're going to continue seeing my face talking about this case both in English and in Creole. So you can accuse me, you can call me name, but that's not going to stop. Okay? I have done this all my life. I will not be deterred. Okay, so just get used to it. Now, let me talk to you a little bit about the second issue I mentioned earlier. It's an update. What's going on in the case of US versus Eddy Alexandre? Now, last week, and on social media, I have seen a voice, not a voicemail, but a voice message where somebody was saying that the case is terminated, that the case is over, both the criminal case and the civil case against Eddy Alexandre is over. I'm here to tell you that's not true. Let me explain what happened. When Eddy Alexandre was arrested, he wasn't formally indicted, which happened sometime. The FBI agent who initially investigated the case, filed an affidavit of a complaint, and he was arrested based on the affidavit. But normally the government will investigate, indict, and then arrest. In this case, they arrest on an affidavit and then indict later. I have a copy of the indictment that was filed, I believe, on June 9 by the US government. So the indictment is an official document that has a criminal case number on it, and where the government briefly lays out its case against the defendant. So the indictment is not so different than the complaint that was filed, than the affidavit complaint that was filed by the FBI agent. As we know that there were two counts in the case. One was a commodities fraud count, and the other was a wire fraud count. Those two counts are in the indictment. So the case will continue. In other words, Eddy Alexandre will go to court sometime around June 13, and then his lawyer and him will take a plea, will officially enter a plea to the official indictment of not guilty. From there, the case will continue. There'll be motions filed, there'll be discovery conducted, so on and so forth. So that is not true. So if you hear anyone telling you that the case is over, the case is not over. The case will not be over for a while. And usually, normally, it takes probably between 3-4 years before a criminal case is technically over. Now, if Eddy Alexandre really want to fight this case, his lawyer could probably file a motion to dismiss the indictment, and certainly there could be appeal on the indictment. So there could be a lot of different ways to fight this case. So it really depends how much resources that Eddy Alexandre has and whether or not he could pay his lawyer to actually launch a full defense assault on the government case. Now, like I said before, this is not to say Eddy Alexandre is guilty or is innocent. It's for me to inform you of what's going on in the case. So this is where the case is with regard to the indictment. Now, what's interesting about this indictment is that the government include what we call a forfeiture allegation. What is a forfeiture allegation? Basically, the government is saying, as a result of the crime which the defendant is accused of, the defendant actually made money. And we want the defendant to give us all the money that he made as a result of committing the crime. Now, certainly, Eddy Alexandre said he's innocent. The government say he's guilty. So we will have to see what happened. Now, if he is indeed convicted, then the government will seize every single asset that Eddy Alexandre has. Now, in this indictment, in the forfeiture allegation, in this new indictment, the government has a list of accounts and other things and property that the government is seeking to seize. The government has this BMW vehicle that the government said he wants, a Mercedes-Benz GLC 450. The government also wants to seize a TD bank account held in the name of Dominique with account numbers ending in 0637, 2914, 2922, 8473, 8598, and 8697, and 9920. Those bank accounts at TD Bank, the government will seize them. The government also, under forfeiture action, which is part of the indictment, also wants to seize a TD Bank account held in the name of Eddy Alexandre his personal bank account, ending on numbers 5365 and 2539. Presumably, all these accounts have money in them and the government will take them. Now, remember during the affidavit, they mentioned, earlier they mentioned a Bank of America account, the account number ending in 3746 and 3742. those two accounts, the government will also seize them. There is a Genesis Credit Union account held in the name of Alexandre, which account will be seized. There's also, and this is where I think, for those of you who have invested money with Eddy Alexandre, this is important. Mr. Alexandre has an interactive brokers account held in his name. Okay? And obviously, there are about three brokers accounts. One is a brokers account ending in number 1114, a brokers account ending in number 1937, and one ending in 6545. Those brokers accounts are accounts that perhaps Mr. Alexandre used to actually make trades. Now, you remember that in this indictment and also in the affidavit prior to the indictment, the government accused Eddy Alexandre of invested $9 million of the investors' fund, and he lost $6 million of that $9 million, and he did not tell his investors that he lost that money. Now, that's what the government is saying. I'm not saying that that's true, that he didn't tell his investors, but I think that if he did not tell his investors in any of the presentation that he made, that he actually lost $6 million of the $9 million, that could smell a lot of trouble for him, because there's no way to defend. It's either you've told your investors, in that case, he wouldn't be able to raise money, because who would give him money if they knew that he lost $6 million of the $9 million? So that is something that is very key to the government case. Now, the government wants that interactive brokers account. They want to seize it. And if he is convicted, they will take that account from him and every single penny in that account. Now, the government also mentioned in the indictment a crypto Coinbase account that is in the name of Eddy Alexandre. This account, this crypto account, crypto coin account, ending in letters, actually number 0F09. Now, there are two accounts, one under two Coinbase account, one crypto account under the name of Eddy Alexandre, and another is the Gemini account in the name of Eddy Alexandre, ending in number 2849. So the government is seeking to forfeit this account, to take the money in this account, if indeed Mr. Alexandre is found guilty. So if he's found guilty, then the forfeiture action automatically kick in, and the government is seeking it. Now, this is why I think if indeed Mr. Alexandre is found guilty, this forfeiture allegation that the government is claiming could potentially create a lot of problem for not just him, for not just Mr. Alexandre, but for also his family. Normally, in a case like this, the government will look at how much of a loss that the victim, okay, the victims have. In this case, the government will call the investors, the people who give money to Mr. Alexandre, the government will call them victims. And the government would assess how much of a loss the victim sustained. And then they will try to recoup as much of that money from as many places as possible. But there are times where, for example, the money has been spent and the government cannot recoup that money. So once the person is found guilty, and the government will then try to seize the person's assets. So in other words, if the person has a house, if the person has assets in different places, they will try to seize this asset in order to make up for the loss. Now, in this case, we know one thing. What do we know? We know for sure, and Mr. Alexandre has not denied this, that he invested $9 million of the investors' fund. $6 million of that $9 million was lost, and he did not tell the investors that that $6 million was lost. So because Alexandre didn't have a license to do this, and obviously if he's found guilty, that $6 million is part of the loss that the government will say that the investors sustain as a result of the crime. And I say crime because it's only an accusation, he hasn't been convicted. So what does that mean? That means that, for example, let me give you an example, okay? It's only an example. Let's assume that Mr. Alexandre is found guilty by a jury, okay? Then Mr. Alexandre goes to prison. I don't know, 10 years, 12 years, 7 years, 8 years, he'll go to prison. While he's in prison, the government then will move to seize asset to make up for the loss. For example, if Eddy Alexandre has a house that he lives with his wife and his family, that house could be seized. If he has cars and other assets, those things could be seized. But in most cases, if the defendant has small children, underage children, normally the government doesn't go and seize those assets. I mean, as a matter of practice, they don't really do that. What they do is they do something called restitution. For example, in a lot of these cases, it involves wire fraud or bank fraud or that type of fraud that involves a lot of money. The government will charge the defendant with restitution, which means that the defendant will go to prison, of course. And then when the defendant comes out of prison, the defendant would have to pay restitution. But the restitution would reflect how much of a loss that the government believed was caused by the defendant. And certainly, in the case of Eddy Alexandre, what is fascinating is that he's not a US citizen. So if he were to be convicted and goes to prison, he would, undoubtedly deported to Haiti. So, but the government will make sure that he serves his entire time here before he gets deported. So if he gets deported to Haiti and there's restitution, he's not gonna be able to pay this restitution. So he's never gonna pay them because he simply will not be, within the jurisdiction of the United States in order to do that. So this is a very serious indictment, and the government is very serious about its case. And I'm hoping that that Mr. Alexandre has some serious defense to the accusation. But myself, as a former prosecutor, as a former attorney with a lot of experience, I have looked at what the government is alleging. And I am very concerned for Mr. Alexandre about three big issues. And I think that his lawyer will discuss that with him. Number one, his promise to give the investors a specific sum certain of profit on their money, 5% up to 9.97%. That's a no-no. So he did that. That's very problematic because he's going to have to explain that. Okay, that's number one. Number two, the government is claiming that he lost $6 million and never told his investors that he lost that money. So he would have to explain to the jury, why did he not tell the investors that he lost the money? In other words, what the government will do, the government will actually come with documents when he lost the money. Let's say he lost the money in February, okay? So March, April, May, he got arrested in May. So those 2 months, he was collecting money. So if he lost $6 million in February, why didn't he have a meeting with all his investors and say, hey guys, this is what I did. I invested $9 million, I lost $6 million. He didn't do that. So that is another way for the government to show that he had intent to defraud, because if he did not have the intent to defraud, he would have told the investors that, hey, I've lost $6 million of the $9 million. But of course, if he had said that, that would have a negative result that he wouldn't be able to raise money anymore. Obviously, the people who knew he lost the money suddenly wouldn't want to put more money into the deal, because they would have said, hey, listen, man, you don't know what you're doing. You just lost $6 million. So that's number two. Number three, which I think smell a lot of trouble for Eddy Alexandre, is that he said he has a trade secret, okay? Now, I don't know if Mr. Alexandre has a trade secret. And quite frankly, my personal belief is that he doesn't, okay? So now, as part of his defense, he would have to somewhat show the jury what is that trade secret? What is it that's so secretive? What is it that, what's platform that he has that is a trade secret, that is somewhat something that is so secretive that he can tell his investors, or he can tell the people who actually give him money to invest? So I think that those three things, he's going to have a hell of a lot of problem explaining that to 12 people. And you're going to have 12 people from Manhattan, okay, where the Southern District lays. And a lot of these people, some of them may be involved in Wall Street. They're going to be people who understand investment. They're going to be people who are very, very smart. and they're going to be able to see through this very, very quickly. Now, if he can explain those three things to the satisfactions of reasonable people, when I mean reasonable people, I mean reasonable people, then I think he has a chance. But if he cannot explain why he didn't tell his investor he lost $6 million, if he cannot tell them what the trade secret is and how much investment he made and how much money he made, if he cannot explain those three things, he's looking at serious problem. So I hope that you guys understand where the case is right now, okay? The case will continue. I will continue to do my reporting on the case. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, I want you to subscribe, because that's the only way you're gonna know when I uploaded a video about what's going on in the case. You will know, because I'm tracking the case, and I know who the lawyers are, the prosecutor, the FBI agent. I'm tracking this. I'm finding out what's going on, and I will continue to provide updates. Now, this is just what I just told you about. It's all about the criminal case, okay? Now, let's talk about the civil case itself, okay? The civil case has not been dismissed. So if you hear anyone in social media saying that, oh, well, the civil case has been terminated, that our CEO is blah, 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 absolute nonsense. And I don't even understand why they're doing that. I know there are people who support Eddy Alexandre, and I applaud them for supporting him, because normally in the Haitian community, we're not very good at supporting one another. So I'm glad that he's got the support of the community. I'm glad that the community loves him, because the community believes that he was doing something positive for them, that he was helping them being financially independent. Totally agree with that. I 100%. But I think that the community needs to take a step back and look at everything, looked at what's being said, and take it and analyze it. Okay? So now what I'm saying to you is that you can continue to support Eddy Alexandre, and I want you to continue to support. But at the same time, I want you to keep an open mind, look at what the government is saying. Let's look at what happened. Look what was said, what wasn't said, what the government is saying, because obviously Eddy Alexandre hasn't said anything. There has not been a press release issued by his people. There has not been any explanation as to why he was arrested, what's going on, nothing. So I assume that Eddy Alexandre doesn't have any media representative, anybody to basically a PR person, public relation person, to speak on his behalf. Now, for somebody who managed to raise $100 million, okay, who managed to put together this amazing company called MiniFX, I'm very surprised that he doesn't have the type of public relation that he should have to actually allow the community to know what's going on. Now, if you follow me, I will tell you the facts. Now, I know some people who support Eddy Alexandre may not like the facts. Well, you may not like the fact, but you're not entitled to your own facts. The facts are the facts, and all I'm going to do is reporting it so that my viewers, the people that follow me, can actually learn and know what's going on. Now, let's talk about the civil case. The Federal Trade Commission filed a separate case against Eddy Alexandre. It's a civil case that they filed in the Southern District of New York, in the Western District of New York. They filed it in New Jersey, and they filed it in all the different federal districts. And the reason why they do that is that they want to be able to have access to whatever property accounts, wherever they are, so they can get them. So that's a matter of practice. They do that. Now, that civil action is very specific. Their job is to try to ensure that Eddy Alexandre never, for his natural life, get involved in trading commodities or involving in investment, basically. So what they have been able to do, they have been able to get Judge Caprioni, Valerie Caprioni, the judge in the case, to issue an order, okay, appointing a receiver. And that receiver has been busy finding out where the money is, basically, where the investor's money is located, account here, account there. So they have a list of accounts that they're seizing this account, okay? They're holding onto this. Now, there's also an order that Eddy Alexandre is not to do anything that could be passively conceived as obstruction of justice. What does that mean? He's not to talk to any of the investors. He's not to pay anybody any money. He's not to do any of that. And I've heard people in the Haitian community saying, oh, we're still receiving money, that they're paying us. These people, actually, the people who are doing a disservice to Eddy Alexandre, because if the government finds out that there are people receiving money when they weren't supposed to, Eddy Alexandre will be in a lot of trouble. His bail could be revoked, and he could see himself sitting in prison waiting for trial. So please stop talking about that. That's not a good thing for him. Okay, let the government do its job. Don't try to help the government. You don't need to. The government doesn't really need your help. So keep your mouth shut. Now, the receiver is located in Manhattan, and he's doing his job. And I know a lot of you have asked the questions, when am I going to get my money back? Okay, and a lot of you made comments under my video about when you're going to get your money back. Okay, so let me answer this question again. You will not get your money back until this case is over. Okay, what I mean by that, the basis for the FTC to file the civil lawsuit is the criminal case. So until the criminal case is over, okay, and Mr. Alexandre is found guilty or not guilty, okay, depends, then at that point, the receiver will know exactly what the loss, okay, what have been lost. And then they will, at the time, figure out how many investors, how much money they were able to recoup. And then they will try to distribute that money in a fair way. And I've said to you before, if you invest $15,000, because I know at least, oh my God, I have so many people that I know, some of them friends, some of them acquaintances, some of them family members who have invested with MNEFX, that, and some of them 10,000, 15,000, 20,000, 50,000, 100,000. A lot of people invest a lot of money. So if you were one of these people, I don't want you to think that you're going to get your $100,000 back. It's not going to happen. You're not going to get all your money back. Okay, I don't care what anybody tells you. I don't care what people say. You're not going to get all your money. Now, you will get some money back. Absolutely, you will. But don't expect, for example, if you did invest $15,000, do not expect to get your $15,000 back. Okay, you may get 50% of that money. You may get 60%. I don't know what percentage you get. All I know is you're not going to get it. So don't worry about it. Okay. Now, here's the thing. This case, like I said earlier, it all depends on Eddy Alexandre, how fast this case moves or ends, which means that if he wants to go to trial, the case could potentially get to trial next summer. Next year, next July 2023, the case could potentially get to trial. Now, if the case gets to trial, it will probably last a few weeks, maybe 2 or 3 weeks. So even when the case gets to trial, usually in the Southern District, it's a very busy district. They have a very busy trial calendar. So it may take more time. I mean, in other words, it may go to trial in 18 months and 2 years. We don't know if the case is going to trial. Meaning that after the case goes to trial, let's say that there are 2 scenarios. Let's say that Mr. Alexandre is guilty. Then from the time he's found guilty, the court may, the prosecutor may ask the judge to remand him to prison. But unless he did something wrong while he's on bail, he's most likely gonna go back home and wait for sentencing. So which means that from the time he gets convicted to the time he gets sentenced, that's usually between 8 to 9 months. So that's another, 8 to 9 months added to it. And then when he finally gets sentenced, that itself is going to take at least another 3 months. We put the prison and do all that. And then when that part is over, and now we're talking about, okay, let's see how many people that we have and how we're going to distribute that money to these people. Now, that's scenario number 1. Scenario number 2, if he goes to trial and the jury find him not guilty of the 2 charges, then he's won a big case, which means that he can go back home. He's not going to prison. he can get everything restored. But what's not going to happen, okay? And I know that a lot of you out there that I've been talking to think that somehow Eddy Alexandre, Emini FX is going to come back and they're going to do investment. It's not going to happen. Don't even think about it. It's not going to happen. Emini FX is over, it's done. It's never, ever, ever going to happen. The FTC is going to make sure of that. And that's the reason why they took over Emini FX. In fact, they will bar Eddy Alexandre for life, never to talk about investment to anyone except probably his family or himself. So do not hope, do not think. If you do, I'm telling you right now, it's not going to happen, okay? So don't even think about it. And this isn't the best case scenario. This is if Eddy Alexandre were to be found innocent, not guilty. In the best case scenario, Emini FX will not come back. So let's not worry about or thinking that's going to happen. It's not going to happen. Emini FX is done. This company is gone forever. It's not going to happen. Okay, so please do not even hope that this is going to happen. It's not. All right. So I have addressed all the issues that I told you I was going to address. Like I always say, I welcome comments. I welcome your opinion. If you do have comments, please leave them under my video. If you do have questions for me, a lot of people have been sending me email at nylaw1@gmail.com. Please feel free to send me an email. And if I can provide answers, I will provide answers. If I don't know the answer, I will look for it and provide it to you. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, if you know someone who's an investor of Emini FX, please send them a link of this video so that they can themselves subscribe so they can receive my video. Because as this case moves through the court system in Manhattan, I want to be able to inform you of every little step so that you understand how things develop, you understand what's going on. So I'm going to keep posting video. I usually post a video once a week, unless there is a development or something like an emergency, then I will do maybe 2 videos a week. But normally I do my videos every Sundays and bring you up to date about what's going on in the case of the United States of America versus Eddy Alexandre. So I thank you so much for watching this video. I normally do my videos in Creole because I do want the Haitian community, everyone to understand exactly what I'm saying. But I know that some of you don't speak Creole very well. And I have received a lot of comments about doing the video in English. So this is the reason why I've decided to do this English version for those of you who understand better in English and Creole. Again, I thank you so much for watching the video, and I will keep certainly subscribe to my channel so that you can always get the new videos. You'll get updates on what's going on in the. Thank you so very much, and let's pray for Eddy. Let's hope that he's not what the government claim he is. Thank you.